to the I-Team. A lawsuit demanding the Prosecuting Attorneys Council pick someone to prosecute the lieutenant governor would seem like a dead issue. This month, the head of the council, Pete Skandalakis, chose himself to handle the case against Burt Jones.
But the plaintiffs in that lawsuit aren't taking a victory lap. They still want a Clayton County judge to intervene.
Fox 5 I-Team reporter Johnny Edwards sat down with the attorney who filed that case and two of his clients and asked, why aren't they letting this go? Johnny?
Well, these plaintiffs actually want Pete Skandalakis pulled off the case. They say he has reason to fear retaliation from Burt Jones. And if he flinches, a powerful politician could get away with breaking the law.
The yeas are 54, the nays are 0.
Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, the most high-ranking Georgia official implicated in an alleged scheme to throw Georgia's electoral college votes to Donald Trump in 2020.
Well, I don't want to see Burt Jones walk above the law.
After a 21-month delay, the Jones case finally has a prosecutor, Pete Skandalakis, executive director of the State Prosecuting Attorneys Council, who nominated himself for the job.
That discretion was improperly exercised.
But these attorneys who sued Skandalakis during that delay, accusing him of taking too long, say the situation only went from bad to worse. Explain why you're still pursuing this lawsuit.
Mr. Skandalakis has a conflict.
The lieutenant governor might have already faced criminal charges by now. He's called unindicted co-conspirator individual 8 in the indictment of former President Trump and 18 other defendants. And a Fulton County special purpose grand jury recommended indictment. But a judge barred Fulton County DA Fani Willis from targeting Jones because she threw a fundraiser for his Democratic opponent for lieutenant governor.
It's a what are you thinking moment. The optics are horrific.
Enter Pete Skandalakis, charged with finding a replacement.
This is an easy prosecution.
And these critics not impressed.
What we've seen is intentional delay.
The attorneys filed a petition to force Skandalakis to choose, saying the statute of limitations might run out. After Skandalakis announced he would prosecute Jones, he asked the judge to dismiss that petition, calling it moot. The plaintiffs not backing down. Here's their argument. The budget for the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, including Skandalakis' salary, is set by the Georgia legislature. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, as president of the Senate, wields tremendous influence over the budget process. So if Skandalakis pursues an indictment, he's asking for trouble. Kendall saying in court documents last week, Mr. Skandalakis cannot be unmindful of the fact that Burt Jones has expressed extreme vitriol toward Fani Willis because of her indictment of his fake elector compatriots. Skandalakis would be risking his job to validate the Willis-initiated investigation of Jones with an indictment of Jones. So what does he want? Skandalakis removed and someone else assigned.
He had discretion to choose probably over 1,000 different people, and he chose himself. The only person that had a direct financial conflict of interest from a financial standpoint.
Though not part of his legal argument, Kendall tells us he has other qualms with Skandalakis, pointing to his handling of the fatal police shooting of Rayshard Brooks in 2020. Skandalakis took over the prosecution of 2 Atlanta police officers after the Fulton DA recused herself. He looked at the evidence, then dismissed all charges.
Pete Skandalakis has a history of not prosecuting individuals who are public officials.
Skandalakis told us he couldn't comment on pending litigation, and nor would the state attorney general's office, which represents him. But former Gwinnett County DA Danny Porter, who assisted in the Brooks case, had plenty to say.
It's insulting to even say. I mean, we had a detailed press conference where we laid out the facts of the case. Those officers were justified in using force. Pete's not afraid of anything in terms of prosecuting cases if he believes he's doing the right thing.
Kendall and his clients told me they're not expecting the judge in the case to do much more than grant the motion to dismiss, but they are ready to appeal. I asked if that might put them back at square one, tying up the Jones prosecution while time runs out on the statute of limitations. They said, 1, that's how much they want Skandalakis off the case, and 2, once the right person is chosen, this should be an easy case that won't take much time to indict.
Wow, interesting that they're not worried about the time running out on the statute of limitations. But to that point, why did it take Skandalakis so long to decide whether to prosecute Burt Jones?
Well, Skandalakis had cited difficulty finding a prosecutor with the resources to take on this case, and Danny Porter told me he heard that nobody really wanted it, that it was considered radioactive both to Democrats and Republican DAs. And of course, these folks suing believe there were political motivations for stalling.
Yeah, well, I asked Burt Jones about this several times when he was running for lieutenant governor. He said he was simply trying to preserve the former president's options, but clearly he put his signature on a false document.
Well, if Kendall and his clients have their way, he'll need to tell that to a judge.
All right, we'll have to see how this plays out. Johnny, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.